This stream is brought to you by Purple Circle. Head on over to purplecircle.io today for your free consultation. Purplecircle.io. Why wait? Get it done today. Hey everyone, my name is Will Figueroa, and I am so happy, honored, privileged. I said it last week, and I still mean it today, to be here on the Blackwood and Fig show. My name is Will Figueroa. I'm your host. I'm joined with the one, the only, our published author, Mr. KJ Blackwood. Will be going over his book, Seven Endings. KJ, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Nice to be chatting with you again. It's fun,
it's
isn't
always
it?
good. It's always good to be chatting with you. It's always good to have you here. I do want to pick your brain just a little bit as we're getting into the middle of this book series and kind of going through stories. I want to pick your brain in what you watch and what you indulge in during the week. I know in text message privately you mentioned a book series, but what are some of the other things that you're watching or currently reading now?
I've actually been watching a lot of French things on Netflix. So Call My Agent, I think in the French titles, 10%, 10%, because that's what the agents take, and that's
okay.
It's set in Paris. It's very good. I've only watched, I think, 2 episodes so far, but it's excellent. And then there's the one Lupin, also French, about a gentleman criminal kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. That's
very, very good as well. So lots of, just for some reason, lots of French stuff. I think they've been suggested to me by French friends. I rather like watching with subtitles.
Or is that what the algorithm is pushing to you these days? Is that what like Netflix and Amazon is pushing you to these days, or are you taking on different suggestions with friends and family?
No, this is suggestions. And in fact, I paid for something on Amazon. Which is a French film. In French, it's called Connasse, which apparently means bitch, and it's titled The Parisian Bitch. It's with, in fact, the actress, she's in Call My Agent, and it's rather like a sort of Borat Ali G thing where she's just really rude to people. But she, it's all with secret cameras and things, or they don't realize that it's a joke. And she comes to London because she wants to marry Prince Harry. So, of course, this is before he was married.
Sure.
I was watching it, but with a hand over my face because it's absolutely mortifying. Oh, yeah, it's a hard watch because you just cringe all the way through it. But I highly recommend it if you want to watch something in French.
Will do, and we'll be sure to put all of that in the show notes. We have a comment already from my beautiful wife. She says he should watch The Sinner. She is in love with a lot of kind of your style, believe it or not. She loves like the murder mystery. She loves the psychological thriller. She loves all of that. So we appreciate the suggestion, love. Thank you so much for being on the show and dropping a comment. So let's go ahead. I may have gotten ahead of myself last week. I may have teased out communication error. We're actually going to be going over Fear of Flying, a love story. And so we'll be, like we do every week, we're going to hold the spoilers off as long as we can. We're going to go in a little bit more depth in the character development and things of that nature. And then I will put my hands up. There will be a warning that there will be spoilers at the second half of the show. So keep that in mind. If you haven't already read it, please go ahead and grab the book. It's all over Amazon, 7 Endings by KJ Blackwood. Okay, so with that being said, the fear of flying. Oh my gosh, Kelvin. Okay, so before we get into too much of the character details, can you tell us a little bit about eloping to Gretna Green? Because I know as I speak for myself, I don't know if I'll ever be so bold as to speak for all Americans, but I'm sure culturally there are many who don't know much about Gretna Green. Can you speak to us about what you know about Gretna Green and why it was important to build that in?
It's something that everyone knows about in the UK. I don't know the exact details of how it works legally with Gretna Green, but certainly in the UK, if you want to get married, if you're, I think you can get married at 16, but you need your parents' permission because only at 18 are you an adult and you're allowed to, do whatever you like.
Oh my gosh.
You also have to, you can't just go to a registry office and get married. You have to have the announcement published. It's called, I think, publishing the banns or something. And so you can't do it quickly. However, there's one place, it's in Scotland, it's called Gretna Green. You can go up there and you can just get married, and you don't need your parents' permission. And so people would elope. So they'd run away and go to Gretna Green because they could just get married if they wanted to, and do it quickly. And it's got this really romantic history to Gretna Green, because you're just so in love that you can't wait a couple of years,
Right. It definitely adds then, now knowing about Gretna Green, it definitely adds to the development of these beautiful characters, Arthur and Betty. They're so in love, and you spend so much time developing even the smallest cues. They're celebrating their wedding anniversary. Betty has a fear of flying. It's their 50th anniversary, and they both want to do something very special for each other. And so, of course, Arthur goes and gets this combination of diamonds for her. So I think it's studs and a necklace, if I'm not mistaken. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is your story, so I'm more than happy to be corrected. But Arthur goes and gets this beautiful jewelry for Betty, and you spend a lot of detail in regards to how they interact with each other, and I love the detail and the character development here with this, because at one point you even write how Arthur puts his head on her shoulder so delicately, and holds her and embraces her at this 50th year anniversary, and says how much he loves her. He couldn't live life without her. So I think it begs the question: who is Arthur and Betty based off of? Are they real? Do you know Arthur and Betty?
No, they're not real people. They are what I imagine to be just the most perfect, lovely couple. That's why I even gave them those names. Arthur, it's such a wholesome name. Betty is such a wholesome name.
It sure is.
Elderly. Betty, I think of Betty White, in the Golden Girls. A woman that looks like her, and Arthur's just a really kind old man. And all those details, I just wanted to underline how in love they are. And it's a people talk about love, and they say, oh, somebody says, oh, I love you. And I think often they don't really mean it. But Arthur and Betty, they really do love each other. And they have done ever since they were children. And I think it's because it's what anyone would want. Imagine meeting your soulmate as a teenager, and then 50 years later, you're still together. Just imagine that. That's what we all dream of. And of course, I do have a partner, but I'm too old to ever have that, because it didn't happen to me when I was a teenager.
Right.
So, their story and their life is something that would be wonderful to have, and most of us can't have it. And yeah, they're just lovely. I love them. They're just so cute.
The way that you write them, and the way that you really develop even the nuances. At one point during the gift exchange, you write that Betty pretended to be annoyed when Arthur handed her the gift, and I love that. Why was it so important for you to develop this deep, intricate character development in comparison to the other stories that we've now heard of? There was real purpose here, and you could tell that there was real purpose here. Can you dive a little bit more into that?
Well, it's because I'd already decided what my ending was going to be.
Oh.
So I wanted whoever was reading it to really feel it. And that's why I was just basically underlining all the time and stressing, God, they love each other so much. It's just so adorable. Just so that at the end, it hurts you more.
Yeah. So you knew the ending, and so as you're developing this, you were just trying to figure out, how deep is this dagger going to go? Is that the angle that you took on this one?
yeah, I thought, I want, because the storyline itself is actually quite simple, and and you could even say it's a bit repetitive. So it doesn't have the extra elements that some of my other stories do, and I think because of that, it needed something more, so more emotion. And this is one of the few that I've written that, yes, it's sad, but there's no cruelty in this one. It's not actually dark. But it is sad.
It is. It is for sure. It's definitely not The Maid. It's definitely not.
This
It's
is got
definitely
the good parts of human nature in it, because it's about
yes.
love.
Yes.
And this is a couple who simply adore each other and always have. They're almost like the kind of couple, you get families where once they have children, it's all about the children.
Right.
And the couple kind of lose touch with each other. But with, these two, Betty and Arthur, they've never done that. They've been great parents. Yes, of course they have. But they've still always been young lovers in their minds. And can you imagine not getting bored of somebody after all that time?
You write in this about in the book, in this story, that they even have two children, Tom and Karen, who ultimately help them get to the airport in the story. And you talk about how even in this story, where people ask, what is it like to be married for so long? Can you imagine, if you will, being together for so long? And the way that you write it, they describe that they were just always in this love, and there was such a fire and a kindred spirit, and they could relate on so many things. And my note here is, you really know how to pull the heartstrings throughout, because after reading this story, if you go back and you read it again, now knowing the ending, I mean, the heartstrings, the callbacks, it's just, I think it's brilliant how, if you were to read it again, to be able to go, oh gosh, this is why, I love that. The inspiration for the story in and of itself, where were you when you wrote it, and what was it that you thought, yeah, this is the next story in this series?
Well, I've always liked a bit of a supernatural ghost story kind of thing. I've always liked that. And I was thinking about that, and how they don't have to be horror. Ghosts and things, it doesn't have to be, I hope I'm not giving too much away. It doesn't have to be horrific.
Well, we know, based on your writing style, someone is going to go. So, let's face that, right? If this is your first episode, you got to go right back to episode 1. Let's go to the pilot episode and watch those first 2. Our KJ here has made it very well known that nothing lasts. So there's something to be said here. So don't worry about giving away any spoilers just yet. I think you're just fine, because it really emphasizes your writing style and how you write. So no worries. Please continue.
Well, yes. So I wanted to write something that had a bit of that sort of supernatural element, and then you think to yourself, does what happened in the book actually, has it happened, or is it all in someone's head? Is it all in their head? Has someone's mind, to protect themselves, created all this in their head, or is it genuinely supernatural? I know a lot of people do believe in the supernatural, and I kind of do a bit as well. But I know if I say I believe, I know I'm not being rational. I know it's one of these. It's like a feeling, isn't it?
Was it a story that you read? Was it a previous author that inspired this? Was it just a culmination of things? And if you had to pinpoint it, to maybe one or two pieces.
Things. Well, Stephen King, obviously. I love anything by Stephen King. I think I've read everything, and also Shirley Jackson, the American author, who she's fantastic at her stories, and no one in the UK has ever heard of her, but I'm told she's quite famous in America. Any sort of horror writer and supernatural movies, I can't remember the names of anything though. I need to watch more. But a lot of the plot was based on a visit I made. It was a work trip, gosh, about, I don't know, probably over 10 years ago, to the Deep South. And so when I'm mentioning places or describing them, it's because I've actually been. And I went to Graceland, and you'd be surprised how many people in the UK love Elvis Presley still. And
yeah, that was going to be my next question. You literally skipped most of the locations, but like Memphis.
I know Memphis. I've been, and just as an example, that the people you wouldn't expect to know about Elvis Presley, the last Duchess of Devonshire, when she died, there was an auction in London of a lot of her possessions, and she was obsessed with Elvis Presley, and so there was loads of Elvis memorabilia. So lots of old ladies adore Elvis still, and a lot of men admire him because they wanted to be him.
Sure.
And so yes, I thought, I remember that trip so vividly, and I wanted to use that as part of the storyline, and the whole thing about a fear of flying.
Right.
I think it's something that a lot of people understand. And as I got older, when I was a child, I flew a lot. From being a baby, because my parents moved around a lot and we were always flying, and I loved it. I was obsessed with aeroplanes. I'd have toy planes, jumbo jets, the 747. That was
same.
If I could have hugged a jumbo jet, I would have done. I loved it. And I was never scared, ever. But as I've got older, when the engines start, I get this little frisson of anticipation, and I think,
a little flutter in the heart, if you will.
Yes, I think maybe this is the time it's going to go wrong.
Oh my gosh.
I scare myself. It's only brief, and it's only ever on takeoff, but I never had that when I was younger. And so to think that someone could be so scared of flying that they've never got on a plane.
Right.
And their whole life has been spent, avoiding that, having to take holidays where you can drive, sure. And that their partner loves them so much that he will also restrict his travel just because he loves his wife so much, and he would never want her to be upset. I think that's adorable. Absolutely.
I think it's wonderful the way that you write it. You continue to write in the character development and the plot development how all these years of being married, they've only kind of stayed within their kind of their area. As long as it's driving distance, they definitely don't fly because of Betty's fear. And then once ferries were a thing growing up for them, they would take the ferry off. And, he loved France and he loved going to Spain and some of these other places. But he always had this heart. He had this desire to go to America. And to your point, to kind of visit the Graceland that is, Elvis and Memphis. And, you go through, like you mentioned before, the Deep South. You make a very specific point in regards to this in their character development. And I want to know where this comes from, where she says that Betty wished that she had known how easy it was when she was on the plane. She boards the plane takes off, she's holding on to Arthur, and she has a moment where she says, I wish I would have known it was this easy. What is it about? Because I see this, almost this theme of, I wish I would have known, or even almost a sense of regret now that we're in this, I think the third story now, if I remember correctly. Where does this theme come from for you? There seems to be this underlying common denominator of, if only I had done this, or if only I had just known. Where does that come from, and why is it so important for Betty?
Well, it comes from personal regret. So hindsight is a wonderful thing, and when you think of the paths we take in life and where you end up and all the decisions you could have made differently, and if you could go back in time, very possibly you would have made different decisions. I would have studied harder at school, certainly. When your parents are telling you to, you think, yeah, whatever,
Right.
It'll be fine. And I have regrets about decisions I've made in the past. And you do something, you finally do it, and then you realize that wasn't so bad after all. It's like the first time you want to do anything, you get anxiety because you haven't done it before because it's new.
Right.
And then you do it and you think, yeah, that wasn't so bad. It's like giving a presentation in the office or something.
Sure. Public speaking.
Yes. The first time you do it, it's terrifying. Second time you do it, yeah, it's not great, but it's okay. It's okay. It's getting better. And then, after doing it a dozen times, you're no longer pouring with sweat, with
Right.
your heart rate going through the roof. And wouldn't it be wonderful if in life the first time could be like the third or fourth time? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Think how much more relaxed we'd all be. But of course, being humans, we can't do that. Right. And if people don't have regrets, they're very lucky, or they're delusional.
I would say even almost sheltered, right? Because if you're sheltered, like if you don't even know, right, then I would think that would be the reason why someone may say that you have, little to no regrets. I think everyone kind of thinks of the decisions that they've made. I think it's wonderful how you even integrate that into the second half. And so this is me teasing the second half because we're getting into it now. Now we're going to get into the spoiler section. So this is your warning right now. If you haven't finished A Fear of Flying, a Love Story by our own KJ Blackwood, now is the time to pause the video, stop the video, finish that, come back, and continue the conversation over at blackwoodandfig.com. Okay, so fair warning. Okay, now the cover's off. We could speak openly, okay? I think this is beautiful, the way that you talk about regrets. And I know I'm going into the second half just a little bit early, but I think there's so much more on the second half here and how you tie that theme in of regret. The way that I've read it is very much leveraging this regret and really positioning it as the ultimate gift from Arthur. And I'll explain this in just a moment. You write how Betty had wished she had known how easy it was to have flown. You pull in the heartstrings. I'm reading my notes here. And then they finally travel, right? They finally get to wherever they're going to go. You speak of how Arthur is now having heartburn. And in fact, there is a break. There is a written break, which I don't know if that was meant purposely or if it was, I don't know. But in the way that it's written, and the way that I see it in the Kindle version that I'm reading, there was a paragraph break here. In that paragraph break, from when they go to sleep that night from the restaurant to when they wake up, is the most poetic break I think I have ever read in as long as that I can remember. I think that it is beautiful that in the end of this story, that Arthur passes. So now the cat is out of the bag. Arthur passes. I think it's wonderful that you take the regret that you've spun through. You've sown this theme of, I wish I would have known. She loved him so much. They could have gone to so many places. There were so many other places. I think it's absolutely beautiful how in the story, how you've written it, you have turned even the one thing that was wrong, if anything in this relationship, into a possible opportunity for Betty. Was this purposeful, or did I just let the mind wander on this?
That break was intentional, because that break, the sentence before the break, that's the end. That's the last of Arthur, of the living Arthur, because they both settle down to sleep, and of course he dies.
And it's beautiful. They say "I love you" to each other. It's like, are you concerned? Like, one was concerned, the other one said, "Oh dear, don't worry about it. Like, I'm perfectly fine."
And isn't that wonderful, though, for the last thing that you've said to the person you love to be, "I love you." So that's the last thing that they hear.
Yes.
And how many of us don't get to do that? So, well, in fact, that's one of my regrets. My father died very suddenly. He was working abroad, and I never got to say goodbye.
Yeah.
I loved him, and so what a privilege to be able to tell the one you love that you love them, and those are the last
Wow.
ones. Yeah, yeah.
So almost a love story to so many things that are going on even today. I mean, think about, the environment that we're in now, people who are passing, who unfortunately don't have the opportunity to do that. I think this story is a wonderful story, and I think a beautiful homage to for those who have faith, for those who believe in the supernatural, for those who have I really read this as like almost like a letter of hope. I don't know if that was meant to be when you originally wrote this. I think the environment that we're in with the pandemic and COVID-19 and everything else, I think definitely may turn it into that. I'll definitely give it that. But suffice to say, I think this is a beautiful letter of hope and faith, and I think true love. I'm going to continue here. You continue after the heartburn moment, and then the break. You write about this long journey. Specifically, you write right after that Betty was having a nightmare, and there was a long journey. You specifically write a long journey. Are you talking about the other side, quote unquote, the other side? Is that a reference to the long journey of heaven? Is that of going to the other side of death?
That wasn't my intention, but if that's what it makes you think, then,
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me that.
Then why not? Well, you'll see that I do make it quite obvious. I think there are so many clues, and I think, and if you've watched any, read any sort of supernatural books and things, you think, oh, I think I see where this is going. So it's not meant to be a complete shock at the ending, because of course at this point it then switches to he's not dead. So
right. You write, Arthur's eyes popped open, startled. That's the line, and to me, the way that I interpreted that, the way that I imagined was arguably the breath of life on the other side, right? He has already passed, and so the eyes popping open is his own realization that he's passed, and yet at the same time he's with her now, right? So of course we come to find out later that there was an entire moment where the hospital was involved and EMTs, and that dream wasn't necessarily a dream. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's what happened.
It wasn't a dream, it was real. So he's not, the next morning he isn't there. She thinks he is, but he sort of is, because he loves her so much, he would never let her fly back on her own.
Right.
And so his love for her allows him to hang around for just long enough to get her home safely, which is what you do for the people you love, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
So the love is just so strong. That's what allows him to stick around for her, because she'd never cope otherwise.
Is it the one last time, or in your mind does Arthur continue to travel with her?
No, this is the one last time. He just has to get her home safely.
Oh my gosh. I envisioned, because of the regret, because now she doesn't have this fear of flying, I envisioned this very supernatural, kind of relationship as it continues. But as the author, if you're saying this is it, oh gosh, that is so like romantic and hard, and
But yeah, his love for her was so strong. That's what allows him to get her home, and she'll probably never travel again. Although
Oh gosh.
she might as a tribute to him.
That was another question that I had. Was Arthur's passing? This is literally the last question, so I'm definitely going all over the case, all over my notes here. But since you brought it up, was Arthur's passing the gift, to gift the idea of new locations for Betty to travel as a widow?
I don't think she will, because she's lost her best friend, the only person that she would want to travel with. But maybe she would. Maybe she would. But her character, as she is in my head, no,
Yes.
I don't think she would. She built up all her courage to make that one trip of a lifetime, and it was a trip of a lifetime for Arthur. So she did it for him. So her love for him allowed her to overcome her fear. So that's done, and it's done and over in so many ways.
Literally close the chapter, and that's that. And I love the comment from Nat coming in again. I don't think it was sad at all, she says, but beautiful, because they accomplished the last thing on their relationship checklist. I couldn't agree anymore, for sure. I wanted to ask specifically, so just after the nightmare that Betty has, that actually we now know is what actually happened, you make it a point to talk about how, and I write, quote, the staff was in tears the next morning. What in your mind happened in between that you didn't write about, that Arthur's death would affect everyone so much at the hotel?
Because they're the kind of couple, if you've ever worked in hospitality, most of the people that you deal with are hideous and rude. But occasionally you come across customers who are just so lovely that they make you smile. You see them coming towards you, and you're pleased that you're going to be able to interact with them. And Betty and I, like that. Everyone has, they're the sort of couple that everyone just loves to be with, and so they've made an impression on the staff, because they're just so nice and they're so cute. They're just such a cute pair. And what I do find the ending sad is that they've had this wonderful, long, happy marriage full of so much love, and now Betty's on her own, and it would have been better for them to die together. And I think there are some couples who they can't live without each other. It's like, do you remember in Titanic, the movie?
Of course.
When the ship goes down and there's the old couple who haven't gone to the lifeboats, they're lying on the bed and they're cuddling.
Right.
And I think if your love is so deep, that's what you would do. You wouldn't want your other half to carry on living alone. I think a couple that love each other equally like that would probably both want to die together.
Yeah.
And so it's just so sad for Betty that she's left behind.
Well, this hurt for sure. The others hurt for sure, absolutely. To emphasize the subtitle of the book, 7 short stories that will make your skin crawl and your eyes water. This one definitely made my eyes water. Little did I know that reading this on Valentine's Day weekend, I would be weeping in bed next to my beautiful wife and going, "Oh God, I love you."
Afterwards, and just to be close. Yeah.
Oh gosh, did we ever? We had this beautiful moment, and I said, "Did you read about Arthur and Betty?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "I love you too." And it's really, I think it's deeper for us because we are high school sweethearts. I met her when I met her. I had to be 13. Wow. 12, 13 or 14 when we met, something like that. I was in my freshman year of high school, so the first year of secondary school, and we've been together since. And so this story for us was just, I mean, I'll speak for myself. It was heartbreaking. Love, if you're still watching, I think she is. Go ahead and put in the comments how you felt too. But for us, it was so. Because we could relate. those moments, the moment where Arthur is giving her the jewelry was definitely a moment that we've been blessed to have between myself and my wife.
Yeah.
Time and time again, where we hold each other, we embrace each other, we tell each other that we love each other. And to your point, it's like this really sick, disgusting, cute love. And so reading this story, reading it on Valentine's Day week, and no less, it was definitely eye-watering for us, for sure. Look, and this goes to show, I'm going to put the comment with my wife here. This goes to show the type of woman that she is, and I love her for it. She says, I wasn't heartbroken because they had such a beautiful relationship, and that's the love of my life right there. So thank you, love. I appreciate that. But it's true. I was devastated to see this. I was hoping for. I loved the supernatural angle that you took on this, the ghost of Arthur, if you will, being there for Betty and holding her hand that entire way. And even then she's concerned, my dear, why aren't you eating? Oh, my stomach hasn't even, settled from dinner. I'll be perfectly fine. So even then, I think there's even, at least for me, there's a great call out, culturally speaking, for being concerned for those who have passed in the afterlife, right? You have celebrations like what happens in Mexico, the Day of the Dead, right? We have to remember these. You build an altar, if you will. We have All Saints Day for us as Catholics here in the States and really around the world. All Souls Day here. So to be remembered, what is it? How can we make sure that we can pray for those, who have passed, because we don't know what's going on. And so reading this story and having that moment and now going back and reading it again, it's like, oh gosh, he was there the entire time. And I love that. I love that story so much. It, to your point, it's definitely a love story. The title is Fear of Flying, a love story, and boy, is it a love story for sure.
I hope that the sort of the love that I try to portray comes across as real, because what I did think was sometimes there are couples who tell each other that they love each other all the time, and it doesn't ring true. I remember I used to work with a couple, and every day they'd say, "Oh, love you, babe." In the office, they would be like, "Oh, love you, babe. Love you too, babe." And I think they're not going to last. They're not going to last. And they didn't. I was right. And I wonder sometimes, what is it that makes the words real, and when is it just lip service? And sometimes it's really obvious, but it's the same words. And
well, I think you speak to that. Even in the very beginning of the character development between Betty and Arthur, I think you speak to that, and I think you even answer that in, I think, the first or second page, the way that I read it, which was the sacrifice, right? Arthur was there and always made sure that they were able to eat. There were no worries. Yeah, they had their good times and their bad times, but there was always food on the table. And I would argue that that's the answer to the weight behind the word love, or the phrase "I love you." It's that sacrifice. It's that time invested. I think that's I don't know. That's my opinion. That's what I would think, even based off of what you wrote. At least that's how I would. Yeah. That's how I would present it.
No, that's good. Interpretation is everything.
Yeah, we've done this a few times where I have interpreted something and you go, that's a good angle. But that's not my intention. And I think this is why I love this medium. I love this forum that we have. I love being able to pick the brain of the author here, because what's intended and what's interpreted clearly are two very different things. I think this story is a great segue in what we're speaking into for next week, which is indeed communication error. But before we get into communication error, I'll ask you this question every time. Is there anything in this story that you wish you would have developed more, or maybe have taken away, now having it out there, now having discussed it with a fan and other fans in the comments below? Is there anything that you wish that you would have added more, taken away, or are you just kind of satisfied with things with the way they are?
I'm satisfied with this story simply because it does to me what my intention was for it to do. And even now, and I've reread it many times, and every time I cry at the end. And I'm happy with that result.
Yeah.
I asked for more than that. It seems crazy that, I mean, I invented it and yet it still makes me cry.
Well, I think it speaks to maybe an immortal truth, which is how beautiful love can be, what it possibly do, and the fact that in true love we don't know the powers that may come from true love, which I think speaks to the emotion behind it that you feel. I certainly have felt it reading it multiple times now. So suffice to say, this story is a phenomenal story. Once again, this is all from 7 endings. Put the cover here. 7 endings by KJ Blackwood. 7 short stories to make your skin crawl and your eyes water. This one definitely made my eyes water. This, I think, is the juxtaposition between this one and the next one is phenomenal. Now, yes, and I'm starting to think maybe this is there was a pattern here. So first story, second story, third story, fourth story. We end on an odd number. We end on a 7th number. So we'll see if this pattern continues or not. But can you tease us a little bit more in regards to communication error and a bit of the differences between this relationship and that relationship?
It's also a love story.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
They love each other, but they actually don't realize that they love each other. That in fact, they're going through the motions,
right? Because
they don't understand their partner, and they've never communicated. And if only they had, how different the ending would have been, how different the life would have been. And I think it's a very relevant story because communication within couples it's a big problem. I mean, look at the divorce rate and everything. And
right.
I've been there. And you can live with someone, you spend 24 hours a day practically with them,
right,
and not really know each other, and not realize what you have. And it's really sad.
I think that's a great way to tease it. I think there's something to look forward to next week with the Blackwood and Fig show. As always, be sure to text us, BAFShow, to 305-697-6013. That's BAFShow to 305-697-6013. And go ahead and let's continue the conversation. Head on over to blackwoodandfig.com, whether it's YouTube or Facebook. You can find us there. Be sure to tweet us out as well, Blackwood and Fig. We're happy to respond to you and what you think. Thank you so much for being here. As always, KJ, thank you for your time. And we look forward to seeing you all next week on the Blackwood and Fig show. Take care, everyone. Bye.